Yeah, and I think so going from there, if we want to go around and just kind of give updates, Preston mentioned that maybe you don't have any updates for Toronto or Toronto this week. But if you have any, you kind of showed that you're reaching out to people, but we could start with Rochester since you guys had your meeting last week, if you want to just kind of give updates on how things are going.
And can I ask about another etiquette thing? Because I need to get some water, and I just have to go across the hall and get it, but I will turn my thing off. That I don't know what Pro Social would say about this, but when people are off video, all kinds of things go through my mind about what they might be doing, thinking, are they really there? Are they someone? Did they leave? All kinds of things. And I would love to know when people have to turn off their video that they say so, and that, that they'll be back, whatever, or that they need to stay off, but they're there. Just because how do we know if somebody's hearing the things that we're talking about, in case, it's something that we all want to know everyone heard, and we'll assume that they heard it because they were there, but we don't really know. So just to let people know, like, I'm going to turn off my video for a bit and I'll be right back. And Jonathan, that would include, you can put it in the chat, bad internet, I'm going, whatever. That might be the way to do it, because you don't want to interrupt. That's a good idea. Thank you. But because I'm interested in us getting a couple of protocols, so we allow people to see that. And if they're new, to give them a chance to understand that, so that they can put their best self forward and not have some of the things that happen that cause conflict, just unnecessary conflict, because they don't know the the protocol. And other people make meaning out of it, even if they didn't know they didn't know. So, okay, I'll be right back.
I have a bit of a problem with that. So maybe I'll wait until Victoria comes back.
Yeah, and I think as somebody who spends most of their day on video calls, I do have another comment. I think that we can always be on the up and up, but I also have a comment as well. Yeah, do you want to start talking about the oh, okay, she's back. So Jonathan, you can go ahead and say your comment.
Well, just that, everything from blowing my nose to yawning, I don't want to have to put it in the chat, but that's what I'm doing. So I would not, kind of make it a rule that people ought to keep their video on, or let people know when they're going to turn it off. I would not be happy with that as a protocol. So that's my 2 cents worth.
Yeah, and I just also had I think, and I understand where you're coming from, Victoria, though, like if you're stepping away versus like I'm turning my camera off. I do agree, like having like, so that you're not just like talking to a black screen and you're like, okay, I guess Victoria's not here anymore, but I'm not sure when she left. But also being just cognizant that not everybody is comfortable with their camera being on at all times. So if it's simple, like just need to turn my camera off, you can just say camera off, still here, something like that. And we're just no questions asked. You don't need to explain yourself. And we're comfortable with that. I would agree that just letting us know if you're going to be stepping away from your camera. But I do agree. I think having that communication is good. Yeah.
Great. So maybe we could actually start, Victoria, to report a little bit on our Rochester meeting.
You're gonna have to do that. I can't remember anything that happened 5 minutes ago, Jonathan.
I know.
Once you start talking about it, I will remember it, but that's not a good question for me. For ADHD, short memory bank. Why I take a lot of notes.
Yeah, and why I would have to actually go back to the video in order to even remember who was there and what we talked about. So I'm pretty terrible at that. Once the meeting is over, I don't retain a lot of stuff. as to what actually happened. Do you remember if Margot was there? And
Yeah, okay, so I think this is another protocol. We should all be prepared with a 2-minute update, maybe 3 minutes at the most.
right.
And since I keep the notes, maybe I'm the one that should do that. So we talked about the design school a bit. Um, um, I'm not sure if that was it. I have February 27th, but that probably wasn't it.
I think
No,
that was the last one that I had attended. Oh no, wait, 27th. That would have been this last meeting was on the 27th for this
Okay,
meeting.
yes, now I do see the notes. Margot was there. Josh Stewart and Kim Burgess are passionate about this kind of stuff. Robert Putney from Impact Earth. And do you know Impact Earth? They make all kinds of green household products. They may source them from other places and they make some of them, and they also handle composting in the area. They're looking for a composting site because it's really challenging around here. And Tim McGowan and
that was a really rich session, and I don't have any notes on it whatsoever.
And I think
and
that's fine. I think
from
just a general
3-9. When was
yeah.
3-9, Jonathan? Because I'm going to just tell you that I'm going to look at the content.
3-7.
Okay, fine.
3-7.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, Margot Fassett, a former mayor of Pittsford, is very interested in wetlands restoration and the Erie Canal. So he's someone we need to reach out to. Josh and Kimberly are part of Healthy Yards, so that's great. And they're starting with trying to get to the color Rochester green. And Margot brought Robert Pitney, who's the CEO of Impact Earth. He may or may not continue to be able to be there. And we talked about finding regenerative projects, the whole earth regenerator process, connecting the dots, finding regenerative projects and putting them together, catalyzing and weaving, asset mapping, looking for what's missing, not what's wrong, and identifying investment opportunities in these projects or in other projects, and marshaling financial resources and collective grant making. So these are things that come out of earth regenerators, but these people haven't been for a long time part of them. Some of them have never been at all. So I thought that was, that's good to remember that we did that. It was a small group, and we need to do something more to outreach to the people who came to the event. We haven't done much. We've copied them and invited them, but everyone who attended, that's my next time. It'll be short. Thanks.
No, I think that's great. And I do apologize because now I'm thinking that I probably should have let you guys know what my plans were so that you guys could have prepared.
It wouldn't have helped.
Yeah. But yeah, I think that those kinds of things, and especially as we get going, like what is Rochester interested? What are you guys doing? What are you guys talking about? Will be helpful. Yeah. So thank you.
Kim, were you there? No, you weren't there.
No, but that's the recording that I watched today. I watched that one.
Oh my God, well, you're the one that should do the update.
I'm just saying, I wouldn't remember what happened where I am, but I can tell you what I was struck by with Kimberly and her partner, Tim, right?
Kimberly and Joshua.
Joshua, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, she had said that she originally was going to go see Robin Wall Kimmerer, right, at the local college, and there were no parking spots. It was so packed. So she came back and signed into your meeting instead. But I think that's so great though about people understanding the value of indigenous teachings and living systems and things like that. So I was excited by that. And Josh, her partner, was really excited about getting people involved culturally, like with the, different, the younger, like the bar groups, the game groups, they met at a kickball league, those kinds of things. So I think that's kind of pro-socially, right? The, kind of culture stuff. And then Tim, what he said really resonated, because I think I'm kind of in the same place with, going slower and the living systems, and, these are relationships and building trust. And there's all kinds of things that are going on outside of Earth Regenerators that are, so, how do you engage with both, right? Because not everyone needs to be part of like a cell, right? How do we interact in both circles, or even a larger circle? So that appealed to me. And of course everything that Jonathan and Victoria said, there's always so much. So it was good. I was glad, because I don't know what is going to happen in Cleveland, and I don't know what people are talking about in meetings like this, so it's helpful.
Thank you.
That's great. Thank you so much for reminding us what we did.
You're welcome.
Yeah, Preston.
Yeah, I'm sort of curious. One of the primary things I'm looking forward to in this process is the aspect of sort of directory and mapping of different aspects of regenerative types of organizations and work that's going on. And so it's one of the reasons I'm really want to get into conversations with the Legacy Project, is to better understand where they're at in that side of the process. But like, for example, somebody I've had quite a few exchanges with is on the board for the permaculture. I think it's permaculture of Northeast. I think it's Northeast US and Canada. So she's on that board, and she was very excited that this was beginning to happen, but she doesn't actually have the time yet to be able to engage with this type of organization. But in my mind, what the benefit, sort of like the Earth Regenerators and all these networking aspects have, is the ability to start creating that pool of knowledge and resources that is very centered around all these ideologies. So I'm sort of curious on how that might be beginning, or what the sort of strategies are around that, or if there is at all within the Rochester area, within Cleveland, with other places. Because that's what I'm really hoping to be able to sort of ensure is beginning to happen up here in our area.
Yeah, and I think that that's a great idea. And actually, if you told me, I do some, like, I post on their social media page once a week for PAN. So I would be able to tell you which member of the board you were talking about, if you were able to tell me if there's two women in Canada. I don't know if it was Bonita or maybe another, like Lynn, maybe.
I listened to Benita speak a couple of times. It wasn't her. Somehow the name is evading me at the moment. Jane Hayes. She's the one that I've had a few interactions with over the last few months. Jane Hayes.
Okay, so she might not be a member of the she wouldn't be on the board of the Permaculture Association of the Northeast. But there is like another group that kind of stemmed from them that's very active on Facebook too. But yeah, I agree though. I think that mapping all of these organizations, it would be a really interesting project for us to just kind of be able to come and put together like the organizations that Toronto is engaging with. So the Legacy Project, who you have contacts with, if we did that for each of our bioregions, it would be really interesting to see the lists and who might have kind of corresponding relationships with.
Yeah, I think it begins to offer it's that aspect of, what's going on in one area then seeds opportunity and like-minded thinking in other areas. And so everybody begins to move sort of in lockstep at some level, or at least, it's a cross-pollination of what's working, what's not working, what's building, what's not building. Yeah, I think it creates inspiration. Sort of like, man, it's, in my mind, what Joe arriving here did was create that level of focus and that kind of aspect of almost like a gravitational pull to a single direction.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Victoria.
And I like the idea because you know how often it is that somebody finds a group, but they're not 100% aligned with it. And then when they hear that there's another group that actually is much better positioned, that people will find the right groups. We can help people find the right groups. And as long as the groups aren't jealous of each other's people, so people can decide where to put their time, I think that's great. I think it will start happening that people are seeing the regeneration process versus permaculture as having more stickiness right now in bioregionalism. Permaculture has been so narrowly focused on growing things that even if they try and change it, it's not going to change the perception. Nor do those people probably want to change it. So I think the differences are complementary,
Yeah, I see a lot of it like Venn diagram wise, right? You have different areas and then you have certain amounts of overlap, and then the potential to use those overlaps to build synergies and build opportunity. And
yeah. Does anyone have a suggestion as how to map these things? Because, Jonathan does mind maps. And I think a mind map of, the kind of regenerative things going on in an area might be, with our group in the center, but overlapping the Great Lakes group, I don't know what it would look like. But Jonathan, is it possible for you to use mind maps unless somebody else has an idea of how to map this or has involved in asset mapping that they know how to map these things?
I thought someone
Yeah,
was mapping. I'm sorry. I thought someone was mapping in Rochester, and I would be surprised if there's not a list of that by the 7 generations people legacy. I'd be surprised. And I thought someone in Rochester, right?
Yeah, John Schul,
Well,
but he was doing it at a global scale and he had nothing in the area.
Oh,
And he didn't know anybody here.
What I turned him on to was this thing called Sustainable Finger Lakes, which has a map of all of the sustainability initiatives that they can find in the Finger Lakes region, including a bunch of them in Rochester. And I added our name. I think you can just sign up yourself. So it's I don't know what kind of technology they use or how really useful it is. But a lot of people are starting to use Miro as a way to display projects and activities. I don't know if that's helpful to people. I use mind mapping because it helps me to remember what I'm supposed to be focusing on in different areas and what I thought about before. So
I wonder if something,
uh,
sorry.
something from Preston, so I'm going to take a look at that.
Yeah. Should we just do the hand raise so I don't interrupt?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so I think with another group we're doing, volunteer group, we're doing Asana, Slack, Asana, and as a CRM system, HubSpot, and they all kind of talk to each other. But if we're going to do things together, take actions, it would be really great if we got some, software that allows us to put things in and share them when you're not there with other people. And we'd be happy to extend, maybe Jonathan can figure out how we can use these things for this purpose, or maybe we should talk to seventh generation and 7 generations and see if they have something that we could share. So, places where, you can do messages, but you can also attach notes and maps and other software that is all integrated. I don't know how people feel about that. We have a really techie guy on the team, and he's done all of that for us. Jonathan's pretty techie, but I'll let you talk.
Well, it seems to me that you're thinking about different functions. One of the functions to me is this thing we call asset mapping, and I'm not sure how it's done in the ABC organizing world, but one possibility for that is using a system like Wikipedia, which is used, the Open Commons thing uses this. Unfortunately, I'm not techie enough to set up a wiki site and make it work. I've tried this because I wanted to do a bioregional directory, but I can't seem to untangle the software enough to make it work. So I'm sort of limited to using WordPress, which could be okay. I mean, if we have an alignment on how to do it, but that's not for exchanging messages. It's not like Slack or something like that where you're talking about a workspace. I'm talking about a directory in the sense of, being able to identify projects and groups and activities and give them some kind of substance. So it's not just a list, because you start looking at lists and your eyes just glaze over. You really need to know who these folks are, and if I'm ambitious and if we all kind of align on a strategy for how to do this, I can put together a WordPress site that might allow us to do exactly that, including allowing people to make their own entries on it, so that and it can look quite elegant. But that's kind of the limit of my capacity. I don't know, Preston, maybe you're more technologically advanced than I am.
Sadly, no. Just I tend to be good at finding people who are doing interesting things and trying to bring them sort of into the in-house strategy. So my whole goal is more the connecting of the people, the networking to get others that are already doing these types of things, leveraging what they've already accomplished to be able to bring that to a wider audience. So again, more and more about that interweaving than about specifically what I personally can contribute on developing websites, etc.
I clicked on what Preston put in the chat about Jane Hayes' website, and it looks like it's from when you go to the website, you could see it looks like it's a Kumu, KUMU.io. Jonathan, you might want to look into that. And see if it has multiple functions, not just mapping.
Actually, I've been through several sessions about Kumu, and again, way too complicated for me. But if
Oh,
I can share my screen, I can show you what I started and see if this is of interest to people to be continued. I don't know if I can share my screen or not. Yep, looks
Yep,
like I
I
can.
just gave you privileges.
Great. So this is my start. There's something called the Great Lakes Commission. And they, uh, this is, you would just do a posting on this. What I need to do is to add to this website the capacity for other people to post things and, so that we can collaborate on it like you can with Wikipedia. I know it's can be done because I've done it in the past, but it's not something I've done a lot of. So um, it's still in progress. But if people think that this is something useful, then at least it would be a start, and then we could migrate to a more sophisticated system if we find somebody who's better at doing the software.
Jonathan, the first letter on the screen has to be changed.
First
In the
letter.
word great, in the word great on the top. What you just shared. It says BREAT.
Oh,
Okay.
okay.
But what I, just in case you would never see that because once you put it in, you forget. I don't know.
Yes, you're right.
I don't know WordPress, and it looks so complicated. I heard that there's another kind that is much more user friendly. I forget what it's called, but somebody can look that up. Our daughter probably knows. So I don't want it to be on a WordPress site personally, because then you're going to have to do it, and you have enough stuff like this to do administratively. So that's my thing.
So I just wanted to mention that I was wondering if whether we wanted to, so I guess there's a couple of things. We could just simply map the different groups that we ourselves are integrating with, or we could do a larger scale, like across our bioregions, which I would hesitate to do that because I think that there are already it sounds like there's a lot of mapping tools out there that already have this information. So I don't know what our purpose would be for having a more, if we want to just consolidate. Are we thinking like just potentially consolidating as many projects across the Great Lakes or our portion of the Great Lakes, because we're only really the eastern half? Or are we thinking more so like keeping track of all the organizations that we ourselves are somehow connected with, or that are connected with our group?
I would think it would start with what we are connected with. So it seems to me that the problem we've all recognized in this process is that very few people are aware of the bigger picture. And the concept here really is to be in drawing out that bigger picture, because as we do so, both Victoria and Jonathan were under the impression that they weren't ready for Joe to come, and that society wasn't quite ready for Joe to come. And yet, once we open up and start, so what ends up happening is so many people are looking for opportunities, but there's no places to go to find opportunity, and people don't have the time to do the research to be able to understand how much is actually unfolding. We're in the middle of it and we don't know. And so I think in the sense of towards the concept of what the ecoversity is, as being a source of information and a source of teaching and a source of interacting in that way, I think this is just one of those first steps. Like, I don't think there's a rush to do it by any means. I don't think we have to have a perfect tool. I was just trying to understand, if we were beginning to thinking around that process. Because in my mind, that's sort of the crux of what our goal as an organization is to just bring what's on the ground into focus and easy access through that process. And I mean, honestly, I think it's a very wide-ranging thing at some level, because yeah, permaculture is a little slice. What's very specifically regenerative agriculture is a slice, but you know, there's even broader stuff, like there's circular economy organizations that are going on as well. There's share economy aspects to business. There's all kinds of different pieces that sort of fit bioregionalism, I think, in different ways, or sort of aspects of almost degrowth in some ways, where you don't have to import things as much. It becomes more focused locally. And I think too, probably this time we don't have the gentleman that was focused on the magazine, but I'm sure he would have a lot of resources, or at least thoughts around how this type of thing would be happening, because obviously with the magazine, he's very regional and he's interacting in that sort of way as well. So I think there'd be some contributions and some thinking and processing and things that he could offer into this. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, okay, that makes, I'm starting to get it more. So no, I like that idea. And I'm wondering too, I mean, John Shull, we know already is somebody who knows how to do this. I don't know if that he would have the capacity to support. And then also Jan. I can't remember which meeting Jan was on, but he was going to be talking to John. They all rhyme. Lots of rhyming words. But they were going to be connecting about their GIS mapping projects, because it sounds like Jan is more regional, but I can't remember what region he's in. He might be more Hudson Valley area. So I think that we definitely have the capacity of people who could potentially help us get things onto a map if we were able to identify the organizations and the locations. Might that be something that we would want to start storing somewhere for a potential use in the future? Starting to collect that data and just having a place for us to store that. Kim?
I don't have an answer to that question.
Oh.
I'm just curious. So something Preston said just made me wonder, are there specific goals? Is there a stated reason for existence for this particular group, our group? Because I don't know what it is. I mean, are we, I think, and if there is, I would love to know.
So I going back to kind of the framework of our like agenda each week, or twice a month. One of the other things that I think that we never really finished was our ACT matrix, and developing our sense of purpose. So I think that usually with that, the ACT matrix is just a tool. We can use other tools as well, but really developing our sense of purpose and then kind of our mission statement is something that I do think that we do need to work on for sure. But yeah, Victoria?
What I was going to say was I am in favor of using, let's say, John Shull's tool. I mean, he's here and he wants to know what's going on around here, and he would consider anything in the Great Lakes Basin group, which is what we are, although we're the Eastern Great Lakes at this point. From a regenerative point of view, there might be another regenerative group on the other side, on the western side of the lakes, but we haven't found them yet. So I would just say, let's have John show us how we would put our sites on the map, see if it works for us, and stay loose until it becomes clearer about the tools that we're going to finally end up using. And it might actually come out of the design school, because I mean, it really ought to. I mean, whenever they activate a community, it needs to be on a map, right? And they need to activate the project, bring the projects together. So I think we could afford to either wait, because may not be that much time, and we have other things to do before we start mapping things. But I would say doing it with John's tool would help him and bring us resources into, of his organization here. That was my contribution.
Great. I do want to go back to Kim's comment about purpose. And I think, oh, Kim, did you want to add something more?
Yeah, let me just run by. I didn't check in with our bioregion here. So just tell me if you think this is on the right track. So Joe and Penny, they just wrote to us, the Cleveland group this week, and announced the launch of the design school. So everyone that had done organizing, and it's just like a small group of people. What I'm going to do is follow up with everyone and find out if anyone at this point is signing up for the design school, so that we know who locally would be part of that. And then the third thing I'm going to do, I'm going to convene the speakers who, spoke at our Cleveland event, one of whom, there was Eco City Cleveland, I mean, a bioregion, this like, that's what I mean, all kinds of stuff has been done here in years past, and he's one of our speakers. And I just want to get a feeling of what the energy is and interest is in, and a lay of the land. I mean, there is a lay of the land here. I don't know it, right? And there's even so much going on our campus, a large research university, and we all don't know what each other are doing. So, but we're starting to. I mean, part of Joe's visit here, I think, was probably part of the impetus for our Climate Action Network to have its first in-person meeting since forming. So that has happened, and there's just all different kinds of conversations going on. So what we're going to do is get together and see, where the energy is. And I just was wondering if specifically, if there's a goal, like, the thing here is we're trying to get all kinds of members for our group, or we want as many people to join the design school, which I think has a waiting list anyways, right?
It's really not a waiting list. It's waiting. People fill something out, why they're interested, and they're letting them in as they, as they see them. They're calling it a waiting list, but if there are people that are inappropriate, they're going to let them know.
Okay.
Based on their expectations, that kind of thing.
But it's
a cool thing to say. I like it.
Yeah. And like am I correct that the design school then is kind of also like a catalyst in and of itself, because that's where a lot of ideas will be coming from, and that kind of thing? Yeah, okay. All right. That helps me.
I wonder if we could take a moment to kind of go around, and if we could share what we individually are thinking about this group. Like, when you're coming here, what is it that you're kind of what is your reason for coming here? What are you hoping to get out of it personally? Just so we can kind of get a check-in to see. I think that identifying what individuals are looking for can help to develop what the collective is looking for. Because as of right now, I don't know if we do have a really solid purpose, other than it's space for everybody that Joe met with to come together and to talk about what's going on. But other than that, moving forward, like, what are your individual hopes? Jonathan?
Well, what I guess I'm assuming about this is that it's an opportunity for us to speak to people in other parts of the bioregion, to speak to people in Cleveland and Toronto and Buffalo, and to then be able to bring back some of that information to the Rochester area group, and in turn bring some of the Rochester area stuff to the larger meeting. And so that it's like as if we're coordinating activities across these regions and learning from each other, which is, I think, the design that Joe is particularly interested in. So that was kind of how I saw it, is that this was um, the gathering of the different bioregional initiatives around like right now, as you said, around the Eastern Great Lakes region, where um, I'm losing my uh, audio here. But does that make sense? That kind of a concept?
Yeah,
What do
I would
other
say that
people
I
think?
kind of had a similar thought myself, that this was almost like I don't know if you guys have something similar, but in Buffalo we have a the Western New York Environmental Alliance, where kind of representatives or members of different organizations, it's much more formal, where they buy in, they have a membership, but they come together and they discuss what their projects are. They even come up with a general theme every 10 years or so. So right now it's the decade of biodiversity. And everybody is promoting more biodiversity. How can we have shared language and shared processes across all of our groups, and not that we're foregoing our own individual groups' interests, but we are collectively moving towards a similar goal. And I kind of see it that potentially here. And yeah, to share that learning and knowledge with each other. So I see mapping as all of these and getting a better sense, like Preston, I like how you phrased it, just getting beyond, I think there's lots of maps for permaculture and for regenerative agriculture, but do they is there a map that has all of them? Is there a map that has more community groups that are regenerative in the aspect of supporting health and education of community members, as well as the stuff for the environment as well.
Well, I could speak if, and I'm going to speak about what you just said. We belong to something called the uh, Agency of County the Agency of County Executives, and that's nonprofit executives in the health and education, the social side. And they have all of these many groups in Rochester, and they meet. It's a huge network, and they are very focused on social, like poverty and illiteracy and stuff like that around here. So it would be a challenge and a great opportunity for us to present to them the bigger picture, which they would definitely resonate with. I mean, there's no reason, I mean, they're not taking care of the ground, the landscapes, but they do know those are important, and they would like to know that we're dealing with that. So at first I was going to say impossible to work with them, but no, I mean, it's like they knowing about us and us knowing about them, and maybe being able to do collective action with one email to the executive director that she can let other people know what's happening, and they have a context for that. And that maybe at some point we do the bioregional view of early childhood education, in the regenerative sector for the people that are doing that kind of education and teens, and so that we bring them in a context that they're familiar with, but in the larger context of the community and the landscape. That could be really, really wonderful. Thanks for the idea.
For me, I think there's sort of two aspects to this, and it's a little hard to pin down entirely. First is the simple conversation that Benji threw out about this being a group of groups, and I think it's sort of what's being touched on here by Anna, by Jonathan, etc. But I think we have to keep in mind, and this is where it gets a little tricky, is the organizational aspects and the ideologies that much of society is structured in right now is problematic. And that's where a lot of it has become dysfunctional and is sort of undermining our own, the foundations of what we're supposed to be working from. And so I think the aspect of keeping that sort of umbrella perspective of bioregionalism, of the narrative that Joe has put together that really gives that excitement to everybody. I think we have to keep on going back to that, because we also live in the other lives that don't exactly look like that yet. And so it's this back and forth living in two worlds aspect. And I mean, Jonathan's whole aspect of, trying to find the right livelihood and collapse is very much an embodiment of that. But so the need to keep on to think from that perspective and try to provide guidance from that perspective and to build out a network and knowledge based on that sort of framework and what is going on in the GTA, the Greater Toronto Area, what's going on in other locations, and then watching best practices, looking at what strategies work in different places and bringing that back and trying other alternatives. Because I think we've all found when you're in a very small siloed group, particularly nonprofit type of stuff, keeping a level of energy going, keeping a focus on trying to get things achieved, it's really hard to do. And then this gives us a slightly better opportunity to know we're part of a larger collective. We're all here for each other. We're all in that same framework of strategy and thinking and partnership, quite against the competitive side of things that we're continually having to try to fight our way through. So it's sort of those two different frameworks that we're trying to create a home for here. That's my perspective on it.
I could do my perspective, and then Kimberly, you can do yours, because we only have 20 minutes or so. So, and Jonathan his, why I liked this, and there's often when Jonathan gets into something, I go, oh my God, it's so far off, our mission, but I generally get enrolled into it, and it really makes a difference, and it really is great. When I got the insight that there's a potential bioregion in the Great Lakes Basin that was in the indigenous times, the way that people communicated, and we're moving back toward the future in something like that. And why would we do anything else unless we have lots of electricity and we can do electric cars everywhere? Going by boat doesn't cost as much money for the transit per trip. It's just your time once you have the asset of a boat. It just changed my whole life, in a lot of ways, to be looking at the perspective of not just that Rochester is a climate haven, because it is, that we could develop an economy around the Great Lakes that other parts of the US wouldn't have. And that it so opens Rochester's mind, and Rochester considers it, conservative backwater in some ways. Sometimes they think of themselves innovators of things, but kind of out of the loop, on the mainstream, what's the state of the art. They're really not state of the art. So I think that's a breakthrough for people to have the aha. We may not have to identify with New York City. That's not the goal. That's the opposite direction, because everyone's always thinking that we're not New York City, but we are the Great Lakes region, and that's just, with such a contribution as Rochester. And if we develop ways to use that, and we can share, just to educate people. I love to talk at different places, and people just get little bits of it and they love it, and eventually, they talk to other people that come. This idea that we're talking to Toronto and Cleveland because the Great Lakes is a region, and guess what? The indigenous used it that way, and guess what? We will probably be using that in the future. It's a big shock, and it's really a big opening. So that's why I like this, is that we really are communicating around the Eastern Great Lakes. And I think that is very important. I think you could tell in Roy Allen, he's the guy with the magazine, his frustration with getting through to people, that looking at things as a Great Lakes is way more important than Rochester. So, I mean, you got to see the whole context. So I can see his frustration. Okay, I'm done.
Okay, and I come here with a love of the Great Lakes, right? So, and just seeing that whole picture like that, and think it, it is nice to be able to have a reason to come together from different bioregions in the greater bioregion. So in terms of role, kind of what I'm thinking right now, because I am a member of Earth Regenerators, I have been for a year. I didn't get activated until after the Bioregional Regeneration Summit, right? That took place in the end of October and the beginning of November, where 1,000 people from around bioregions in the world came together just to share different ideas and practices. And Joe was there and interviewed, and it's where I met some other people in Earth Regenerators now. And I expressed interest in what's I'm curious about what's going on in the Great Lakes. I'm curious about how to be in these already existing places and not having to move somewhere to, as lovely as that is. And maybe if I could, I would, but I'm thinking of everyone. How can we just start even looking at where we are as a living system bioregion? So since then, I am, well, I'm not doing a lot in Cleveland. I'm coming in contact with people like in my path who are just very helpful for their experiences, like coincidentally or synchronistically. And including last week meeting someone who he then sent me this planet. Have you heard of this Planet Drum? I don't know if it exists anymore, but it's a newsletter out of San Francisco. Yeah. And I don't know if he worked on this or his father was an eminent economist and systems person. And I think Russell is, I mean, he's on a homestead in Indiana, and they're doing regenerative farming, I'm sure. But this definition of bioregion really appeals to me. A distinct area with coherent and interconnected plant and animal communities and natural systems, often defined by a watershed. A bioregion is a whole life place with unique requirements for human inhabitation so that it will not be disrupted and injured. So there's that, and there were little projects in here, which is where then this David in Cleveland was highlighted as something that was happening back. I think this was in the 80s. Maybe that's it. There's going to be another summit likely in May, and I think Ben talked to you about that. Ben Roberts has talked to some people about that. maybe in Toronto, there were conversations. I know, Anna, you had a conversation with him, right?
Yes, I have met with him before, but not related to this. But I know that there is going to be a summit coming up because that was something that they wanted to do again this year and probably early in the summer, I think.
And at the Cleveland event, there was the, invitation made. I don't know if it got relayed that, maybe there could be some in-person and virtual representation from the Great Lakes bioregion. Maybe that's something we could, do. I kind of think of as like activities that we can organize around. It's a reason to come together for something. And then being more active in the community where, say we could, whoever, could be ambassadors for Earth Regenerators or the design school, whatever the identity or brand is. That's kind of what why I was asking about our group, like what are we doing? And I also think it's okay that we maybe don't all see the same future, right? Because I know we talk about here, like I don't know if it was the big idea or what's really happening or that kind of thing. And just, I'm not planning for collapse. I am more of a kind of, I feel like a more a curator of emergence and see what's happening. Like this stuff in Cleveland, it wanted to happen. And a lot of it had to do with Peter, but just being very supportive of that. And I do like, and just collapse for me is a really big word. It can mean a lot of different things. Like some things do need to go away, right? Without even having to verbalize them. But just, I need to know in my heart that I'm not going to be part of a self-fulfilling prophecy. Just my own individual philosophy. And I think that's it. I'm excited. And I imagine, I picture the whole Great Lakes, because we all know people in different parts of the Great Lakes. I'm going to attend a tea, like a complexity community Wednesday night series that anyone is invited to. I can send an invitation. Mulaney Goodchild, who founded Turtle Island Institute, who is now by 3 Great Lakes. She's in Sault Ste. Marie. She and her husband are hosting a tea every Wednesday. And I feel like that, I miss being around, the indigenous mindset, heart set conversations, or with people like Joe Brewer. He was, his definition of regeneration was the best I ever heard. And that's what engaged me in Earth Regenerators, that wholeness, which is our true nature of reality. So I tend to go toward that now pretty consciously, and it's not all involved in like what our kind of group is doing. So, but just so you know, that's a little about me. I kind of need to insist on living in that world. And I'm done.
Can you put the link to this thing that you're talking about? This,
Yeah,
I
I'd be really
I
interested
don't
in
have
that.
a link. I can send, I can forward, if you put your email addresses in the meeting chat, I will forward you the invitation. There's that, it's part of Wolf Willow Institute. Have you heard of that? Kind of a systems thinking group. It's in Canada. And there's a retreat in April for them, free. But this tea is every Wednesday evening for a few weeks, starting in 2 days. So I'll send it to you.
That's really great. And Planet Drum is one of the original bioregional, it may be the original bioregional organization. I think it was started by Peter Berg. And, these are, here he is. He's the kind of grandfather of bioregionalism, along with people like Kirkpatrick Sale and others who've written about it.
That's the
And
link. That's the
I
one.
know
That's
when
what
I
he's.
started doing research, sorry?
I'm sorry, I didn't, I
Yeah,
said that is the
um,
exact link that Russell Bolding is the person who sent me this info.
okay. Well, I know when we first started talking about it, I went and did some research, and this was the first thing that I turned up. And I think it was part of the Whole Earth catalog, or one of the things that was listed in the Whole Earth catalog. And I wrote to these folks, and I think they kind of acknowledged us and, become a member, I think. Um, and I signed up for the email list, but I don't think I've ever gotten anything from them. But it looks like they're still quite active and doing things, posting things. Um, Bioregional workshop in San Francisco. And so they have, uh, you know, useful stuff here. Last updated 2019, however. Of course, they might not have updated that piece of it, but they might have more recent information.
Hey, Jonathan, can you click on one of the links if you go up further to the top? Um, hmm, I don't know if it's projects. Keep going down, down, down. That's okay. I was going to have you click on the paragraph about Cleveland, but I don't see it, and I don't know, maybe this is a different issue. I don't remember where it was.
I don't see a little search bar that would help us to get.
In the interest of time, Jonathan, yeah.
Well, I was gonna
Yeah.
say if you click Control F, I believe you should be able, or it's either Shift Control F or just Control F, you should be able to search within it. But yes, as Victoria said, maybe we should. Could you put that link in the chat? Is that
Sure.
something that Kim shared earlier? Or yeah, but if you want to
Well,
share
it
that, then
does look like they really haven't really updated it since 2019.
yeah.
They might not be in operation. I found the paragraph, so I'll just read it. It was under re-inhabiting cities. And Eco City Cleveland was a nonprofit organization that promoted a vision of ecological cities existing in balance with their surrounding countryside. Through its publications and projects, Eco City Cleveland presented innovative ideas for regional land use planning, transportation systems, watershed restoration, ecological redevelopment, and other issues. After 15 successful years of promoting the design of ecological cities, Eco City Cleveland merged with the Cleveland Museum of Natural History. David Beach, creator of Eco City Cleveland, continues the work as the director of a new center for regional sustainability at the museum. But this was a while ago, so he's not there now. But I tell you what, I was there by surprise at the museum, and I was out on the patio and looked down, and the Lake Erie watershed was carved into the stone. All the rivers and the streams in Lake Erie. No cities, no counties, none of that stuff, just the water. And it was so beautiful. I was so happy.
Sounds beautiful.
Worth researching where these efforts have continued and the people who have joined other groups or lead other things. Yeah.
Well, this David was David Beach, who spoke at our event with Joe. Joe did the main event, and then there were 3 more people who spoke. Well, not very long, but they're quite prominent in our bioregion. So we're going to get together with all of them.
Wow. Wow, that's great.
And I know so little, which is just trying, okay.
Kim, I love the what you said, a curator of emergence. And I would say, please stop apologizing for what you don't know. All of us don't know what we don't know.
Okay.
So, as the curator of emergence, they can depend on you for that, but you have content experts under your wing.
Okay. Thank you.
Well, would we want to do a quick one-word check out? We can close.
I just wanted to say we didn't finish going around to you and Jonathan, Anna, or Kim, and what maybe Kim did say what yeah.
Oh yeah, I also said, and Jonathan started, I said second. So I think we did hit everybody in terms of
The vision.
yeah, which I think still next time I'm thinking if I can even have a more formal activity, but what I want to do is from this I want to kind of write something up and see. I think that we still just need to kind of formulate a little bit more to get a good sense of what our shared purpose is, even if we don't have the same long-term goals. What is it that we're going to be doing when we come here so that we know what our purpose is. But yeah, I think in the interest of time, we can do a quick checkout. Victoria, do you want to start?
Sure. Well, what I'm left with is that our job is to educate people about what we know and have it be high level, because that's all they want to know. And develop ways of articulating it and visualizing it, and in ways that can be brought to a global bioregional summit, so, and to maybe find models in other bioregions of how they got the concepts across to people, as frameworks to use. Thank you. It was fabulous.
Pass it along to someone.
Jonathan, go.
Well, my word is challenged. I'm feeling quite, trying to wrap my mind around these things. So that's really great. Kimberly?
Gratitude and maybe stories. When I hear Victoria talk about what to share, I'm thinking of stories. And I also wanted to mention the constellation workshops coming up, the regenerative constellation. They're fabulous. This Anna Leek, I met her at the summit, and is very interested in just helping all kinds of different bioregions. It's kind of like if something's blocking a flow, you just kind of embody role play, like you role play the land or the water or the people, and it's really powerful. I couldn't believe it when I attended some, and there's one this Wednesday and a couple more coming up. I can send you the link for those. Yes, can I email along, or I'll look and see if I can in the chat. I probably can't, but I'll email if I don't.
Please.
Thank you.
Preston.
Inspired by both Kimberly and Victoria, the beginner mind, the importance of the beginner mind when we are starting things new, and sometimes when we're revisiting things. It's not what we know, it's what we're bringing and what we're going to be exploring. And I will pass off back to Anna.
All right, thank you. I'm I guess trying to consolidate. There's a lot of information that is flowing around me. quite rapidly from all sides right now. So I think in general, I'm just trying to consolidate things and thinking about how to move forward. But I see a lot of potential here, and I agree. I think my biggest thing is getting other people to understand what we're talking about. How do we make this more accessible? That's kind of my goal. So I see a lot of possibilities here. And I think that this is a great group to do it with. So, all right.
Can I just say something because I won't remember it ever again? If we were, and to come up with things that would matter that get done out of this group. What will get done out of this group that couldn't have gotten done out of any other group?
I like
So
that.
we might be thinking about that because, you know, that's our deliverable, you might say, our mission, you know.
And creating conditions that will allow for it to emerge, right? So like that can bring in more than like just the 5 people in the room. And I'm not even just talking about other people, just there's just more. You know, the ancestor is real as this hand, you know, it's so let's live, we can live that.
And don't forget, we have 1, 2, 3, 4 bioregions here on this call. And that's an accomplishment. That's a good part of the Eastern Great Lakes. It might even include all of the Eastern Great Lakes, as far as I know. I don't. So we may be small now, but yeah, obviously we want more. Yeah. But it's an accomplishment to bring us together. Thank you. Thank you, Anna.
Yeah.
Thank you all. Oh, it's been fabulous. Kimberly.
Thanks for holding the space.
Yeah.
Hey, Preston, I wanted to say, I think there was one time you may have introduced yourself on the, did you say northern shore of Lake Erie? Yeah. And I was like, that means I'm on the southern shore, and I've never considered myself being on the southern shore. We don't think that that's south. We think of the lake as north. So thank you for that.
Okay, so maybe. All right. Well, thank you, everybody. So I will reconvene in another 2 weeks. Bye.
Thank you, Anna.
Thanks.